Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the July 28th, 2026 Infrastructure Committee of Harvard Borough Council. Mike Salison, Chair of the Council. We also have Joe Stratton, who's a member of the committee, along with borough staff. And Mr. Bonini, I believe, is still on the committee. First item for the agenda is the approval of minutes for June 23rd, 2026. Mr. Stratton, am I giving you a motion?
I motion to approve.
I second. Any comments on the agenda? Okay. Yep. So, okay. Second is recommendation to council, capital expenditure of the police vehicle. This was mentioned at the council meeting last, I guess 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
We unfortunately suffered some damage to police vehicle and the major storm that we had. Parking lot flooded.
Yeah. So we did hear from our insurance adjuster, and they confirmed that the car is in fact totaled. We're still waiting to hear back from them about any coverage from our insurance for that vehicle. But given that this is one of our police vehicles and we need it for policing, we went ahead and, as discussed at the last council meeting, we went ahead and put an order in for a replacement. So we did end up replacing this in kind. So it is a Ford Explorer gasoline vehicle, not a hybrid, per the recommendation from Chief String. And also that is what was available. So it is currently being worked on at the shop, getting upfitted for what it needs to be for the police vehicle. Jeff will give us a brief update on our timeline for that. But we went ahead and purchased it at a price of $76,767.62. We almost couldn't fit another 7 or a 6 in that price.
Mm-hmm.
But we found a way to sneak in something other than a 6 or 7. Just, yeah. So for all the Gen Alphas out there, 6, 7.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Time frame?
So yeah, Jeff.
Yes, I spoke with our rep from Chapman Ford this morning. The vehicle was en route to Intercon, which is in Aston. And sprayed there, so the vehicle white. So John, would like the vehicle black, so it's being sprayed there. Overall time frame is needed. Here,
Okay. Straight, you were gonna say month. Like, no. Okay, good. And anybody playing at home up there? Just because. Yeah, there. I guess we have one person online. We were planning to replace that vehicle anyway, so this is really just an acceleration of a capital expense that we were planning on doing it. We're going to do it next year in any event. So, with that said, Joe, you want to make a motion to recommend approval of purchase?
Yes, I move to recommend purchase of the vehicle.
I second. Okay. Okay. On to discussion items. We had some input about our tree care policy and the implementation thereof. Got some feedback from the public, and in light of that, we wanted to explore how we tweak both the messaging of that and potential either soft enforcement or non-enforcement under certain conditions. So I guess do you want to give a more fulsome description, or you want me to? Or?
Yeah, so the request was made by Councilmember Spear, who is here tonight. Just wanted to have something a little bit more defined when it comes to tree ownership. This came about in part because of the storm that we experienced earlier this month, where folks were having questions, oh, this was a shade tree, or this was a tree planted by the shade tree. Who owns it? Who maintains it? Am I allowed to, replant it? Things like that. So we had some questions about kind of tree care, tree maintenance, and tree ownership. And also just kind of some of our lessons learned and experiences going through the summer with our vegetation maintenance efforts, wanting to ensure that we continue to provide best care to our residents on things like pruning schedules, maintenance and care requirements to ensure that the efforts taken this year to ensure clearance heights and other maintenance are kind of proactively being supported throughout the lifetime of the tree, as opposed to, when we go for an enforcement effort. So the request is to come up with something that's going to be a little bit more, not necessarily a policy that we would adopt, through resolution or ordinance that would be enforceable from a code enforcement standpoint, but more of a best practices policy that we can adopt and share and have available as an educational resource for our residents. So we do have a representative here as well from the Shade Tree Commission. Hi, Carson. Thank you for joining us. So the idea being that we will kind of discuss what that policy wants to look like. We'll have Shade Tree involved in that to help us craft that language, and then we will finalize the policy and then make that available across all of our information channels.
So I really think that there's sort of two different things going on here. One is, and Carson, we were thinking of like when you plant a shade tree, that would be good if the commission had even if it was sort of a one-page FAQ. I know that you, at least from when I had my shade tree planted, I sort of got the instructions on make sure you water it every day for a week, et cetera, but a little bit more of a longer description, like now that it's planted, this is your responsibility, not meaning the homeowner's responsibility, not the Shade Tree Commission's. They're responsible for upkeep and maintenance, et cetera. I don't know whether the commission would be willing to say, we're always available to you if you want help or advice in terms of how to prune, et cetera, or you don't want that responsibility. So at least let's stop there for that one. Thoughts from you?
Yeah, we created, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, we actually created, I think we called it like a hang tag or something. It doesn't matter when we did it, but yeah, that's great. I think that's really good. I think the key thing for people to know is that the Shade Tree Commission is a resource. We can help people and give them, really sound advice based on best practices, as Maggie was saying. So yeah, we actually included a way for them to contact the Shade Tree Commission if they had questions. And we do, of course. Who knows how much people read, right? But we always do tell people, once you have a tree planted on your yard, in your yard or in your, strip, it's your tree. And it's very clear in the borough's ordinance about trees that it's your tree and you're now responsible for it. So I think it's great. And the more information, the better. The more times we can remind people of that, the better. And the more ways we come up to communicate it again. There's no harm in communicating it every time we plant a tree, every time we talk to someone who has planted tree. I don't think any one communication device is going to work, but a lot of communication devices will work together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would want to see, like, when you give that handout when it first gets planted, just sort of confirming on there that not just about, how to care for the tree in the first week or the first couple of weeks, but also just saying, making sure that we include that additional information and reiterate again that it's their tree, they're responsible for it. You're available as a resource. I assume that you keep track of when these trees are planted.
Yes.
each time. So, it might be worth just considering, I assume you have that list by email, after a year, just sending out email saying, happy 1 year anniversary. Do you have any questions about your tree? Is it doing okay? Do you want pruning advice? Hopefully it's growing, it's healthy, whatever.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, one of the other things, as you probably know, is we retrieve the watering bags after a year. And we usually go ourselves around to clip the pieces that hold some of the trees to the stake, because it's preferable after the first year to take those off because you want the trees to grow stronger.
Right.
But I think that's a really great idea, Mike. And certainly I'll tell the committee that you recommended that.
Yeah,
And
well,
we'll see.
perfect. I didn't realize that you went back after the year, so it's the perfect opportunity to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then the second half of this equation is really dealing with, our enforcement of, the ordinance that we started in spring, and sort of how best to, well, what do we do? The particular issue came up with a resident saying, hey, I just got these new trees, and because they're moving to the ground, they're technically out of compliance with the ordinance.
Yes.
How do we deal with that as an enforcement mechanism? Do we have to, go all the way to amend the statute or the ordinance to create those exceptions?
Well, what other townships like us do is the ordinance is for mature trees. So you just say that in the ordinance itself, this is for mature trees, because it is a case that if you've just planted a tree, especially a smaller tree on the, under the wire side, and you chop off all the branches, it will just kill the tree. And then you won't have the shade. So I think what I have seen other townships do is say mature trees. Something like a shrub, that should just be cut, if it's in someone's way. But you will just kill the tree if you cut it when it's, whatever, a little serviceberry, cut that thing and it'll just be, no longer alive. The other thing that's a little concern of mine too is it's one thing to cut shrubs and stuff in the summer, but it's really not a good idea to cut a tree dramatically unless it's dormant. So there are a couple of just tree health things that are related to cutting trees. I think any arborist, I can probably look it up if you want me to. I can just Google it, because probably the Arbor Day Foundation has something that we can just reuse. But I would recommend that it.
Oh. Maybe.
Hi, Carson. We froze there for a second. The last thing that you were explaining was, I think the benefit to, I think you were going into a discussion about pruning so that you could trim shrubs, I think at any point, and then we kind of lost you from there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. The key thing is that, and again, I'm happy to look this up so we have something that's standardized from the Arbor Day Foundation, or one of those organizations. But the key thing is, if you drastically prune a tree that is not yet mature, you're just raising the chances of it dying. But how many trees is that in a year in Narberth? Like, we plant like 20. It's not that many. It's not an enormous number of trees that are on the street that are immature. So I think that and I'll discuss this with the Shade Tree Commission, but I think it's probably the case that we would recommend just saying the tree is not mature yet. Ask an arborist for recommendations. And I think the borough itself should just consider the risk of not having the shade and the tree there anymore. But it's not that many trees. I hope it's not going to impact a lot of people.
There are probably some that aren't planted by you, that just the property owner plants too. So,
Sure.
You know, I
Yeah.
was saying to Maggie, was certain we lost the connection is, if we were gonna actually formally amend the ordinance, I would want to have a definition of mature tree, you know, it's,
Sure.
you do it
Yeah.
in an ordinance that, or, you know, sort of giving discretion to the enforcement, there's always sort of a trade-off. My personal preference is to have clear rules and sort of well-define the ordinance rather than leave it to you guys, because I think what tends to happen is you issue a tag, somebody calls, they're screaming at you, right? You know, and then you're saying, well, we're not going to enforce this anyway, and then it's whispered down the lane, well, why are you enforcing it against me and not my neighbor? And you know, the ordinance doesn't say that. So I think it's less of a burden for you if we actually had an exception in place. But that's my own view. Jim, you want to weigh in on that?
If that's possible to do that, to define a mature tree and growing tree, that'd be great. I mean, I think the key is the enforcement part of it. It would be nice to let people know that when we warn them about things that are hanging over the sidewalk, that there's help there, in the shade tree, I'm sure volunteers are ready to come do it for them, you know, in that case. Yeah, so I think the whole shade tree ordinance needs redoing anyway. And I've been keeping sort of a running list, sort of a wish list of things that I'd like to see. You're not ready for that now, you're not ready for that anyway. It'd be nice to consider this along
That's
with
part of it.
a couple other things. A new shade tree that's near, it's a planting trip. Yes, it does belong to the homeowner, but it's also, it's a valuable public resource as well, you know, and we want these things to grow to a mature height and provide shade and provide a rocking atmosphere for people. So it's really in everybody's interest that these things get cared for as best as possible, you know, even if that means tolerating a little bit of, you know, base height, browsing height.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about, there are some other things in the ordinance that probably need to be amended anyway. We've been talking about that in F&A for a while now.
Yeah.
So if we're going to do that, I think I would also be, let's see if we can come up with a definition that allows for an exemption for new trees, you know, within reason.
right.
Obviously, you don't want a branch sticking out, you know, at eye level across the side.
Mike,
Yeah.
may I say something quickly? I just wanted to reassure you that, you know, there is science behind this. There actually is like recommended procedures, and other townships and municipalities have implemented tree ordinances. So when we worked on it in 2020, I don't know what year it was, we actually looked up other municipalities like ours, you know, and used standards that they had already kind of reviewed and seen as good. So we don't have to make any of this up. We don't have to, we want to make it work for Narberth, but we can draw upon resources that are credible and based on tree science. And so that's a great thing. You know, we don't have to worry about it, us coming up with something.
If I can give that to you as a homework assignment, Carson, if, to see if you can see if there's some, you know, definitions that exempt mature trees that you could share with us. And if you can't, that's fine. We'll find it ourselves. But if you've already maybe have that in a file somewhere from when we created the ordinance, that would be great.
Sure. I'll discuss it with the commission. You know, I'm in a bit of a bind right now because I fractured my patella. So I'm actually going to see the surgeon today, and I'm not sure what my, but I'll share it with the other members of the Shade Tree Commission, and we'll definitely get that done. Now, will that be in the minutes of the meeting? So that, okay, great, awesome, thank you. Yeah, we'll be happy to do that. Yeah,
Okay.
we've got lots of great resources.
Okay.
And Carson,
Thank
we can follow up in an email as well. So Emily will draft an email summarizing everything so that you'll have that as well.
Excellent.
So that'll be available this week as opposed to waiting for the meeting minutes. Just so that we'll relay the direction from the committee to Shade Tree Commission so you guys can start working on that. So thanks
Yeah.
so much for all of your efforts and
Sure.
sharing resources.
Yeah, we're meeting next Tuesday. Again, I don't know when my surgery is going to be. So we'll see, but we're definitely on top of it. And, the members of the Shade Tree Commission are just the best, in my humble opinion. So we'll definitely get that done. Thank you.
Joe, you had.
Yeah, I have just a question of definitions. I'm looking at chapter on E Code 360, chapter 462, which is trees for Narberth. And a definition of shade tree is any tree on any public street or any tree or portion of the tree on private property which extends within the lines of any public street. What does that mean? What is a tree?
Oh, it's, what that's based on is providing shade. So that's why, you see what I'm saying? So if it's on a public street, it provides shade.
Maybe if I finish my question.
Oh, sorry.
What is a tree on a public street? Like, how is it a tree on
It's within the right of way.
within the right of way?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in the first 5 to 8 feet ish of a property line.
Yeah, and again, it's going to, so the right of
It
way,
depends.
it depends on which road you have, which road you're on. So obviously cartway widths vary, sidewalk widths vary. Some streets have verges, some don't. So it's whatever the right of way is. So we use that as our kind of parameters to figure out what's like a public shade tree
Perfect, that's great. So it's in the right of way.
in the right of way.
And then also this says the Shade Tree Commission shall have custody and control of the shade trees in and upon the public streets of the borough and shall have the authority to plant, transplant, remove, maintain, and protect the trees. If I have a tree that's in the right of way, does this mean that the Shade Tree Commission has authority to maintain it? Do I maintain it? What is the current
So
state of
that's
life?
one of the things that we've discussed in F&A, because that language seems incredibly broad, right? Like, oh, really? The Shade Tree Commission can just come in on a tree that I planted, that.
Or
happens so
I don't
right.
have any maintenance
Right.
responsibility for a tree.
Well, it doesn't say that you don't. It says that they have
The authority.
the authority, right? It doesn't mean that you abdicate your responsibility. They have the sole authority, right? But that's actually one of the things that we've talked about in F&A, which is, does Shade Tree actually want that responsibility? What happens if they, in theory, don't invoke that? A tree limb falls down or something, does that create liability on us? Because, we empower them to do something and they get cut off a dead branch. So that's actually something that's sort of one of the things I think that's on Jim's list, right?
That's right. That correct.
Okay.
And Maggie, isn't that ordinance? I believe that ordinance is 1996. Isn't that correct? 1998, 1986. It's a very, very old.
Yeah, it needs a lot.
It has-
There's a lot of things that need to be changed anyway. So.
Yeah. We've talked about that liability in the past. It's silly. The Shade Tree Commission is an advisory. We advise the infrastructure committee. We advise borough council. We're not like official people. We're just volunteers, trying to help out.
That makes
Sure,
great
Joe,
sense.
you haven't been to these F&A meetings because these are all the sort of.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm playing catch up. I wasn't in F&A.
But
Okay.
actually, I'm impressed that you're picking up on these very issues that we've talked about without having been
Okay.
there to have these discussions, because these are the exact sorts of things that. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm actually impressed that you're picking up on
Oh,
the
thank
very
you.
issues that we've been talking about for a couple of months that are like, wait a minute, does this really mean what it says? We don't think we've never sort of enforced it that way, but it does create a lot. And that's why I was saying, I think we're going to amend the ordinance anyway. So it's the perfect time to make this consideration of, exempting stuff
Yeah. One of the things we've talked about, the commission has talked about a lot, is having a timeline for the development of the ordinance. Like, let's put some deadlines in place so it can move along and it's not just,
Yeah.
a pie in the sky thing. We put a lot of effort into it 3 or 4 years ago, and I'd like to kind of use those hours, the work that resulted from the hours we spent on that. So if we could really have deadlines going forward, but I'll put that on the agenda for next Tuesday's Shade Tree Commission meeting. And
Yeah, if you guys want to make specific maybe you did 3 or 4 years ago and it's before my time, but if you want to put together those specific recommendations, because I definitely think, especially with, now the ordinance in place for all the maintenance issues, it's really the right time to focus on this.
Yeah.
Which, we've talked about it a lot on FNA, but we sort of haven't advanced the ball either. So, but I always, I'm always of the view of you pass an ordinance, you discover something, whether it's the parking ordinance or trade tree or whatever it is, you discover when you pass it that you created some things with unintended consequences. So it's not unusual to go let that experience, fester for a little bit and then realize, oh, here's some tweaks that we need to make it.
got it. Yes.
Example of that. So, okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Carson.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Streetlight inventory and replacement.
I just want, Joe, did you have any other questions?
No, that's everything. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Thank you.
So I'll kick it over to Jeff for the streetlights.
Yeah, I'm not sure who asked for this, from the storm, there was one pole that came down on the 300 block mainly. And the pole that fell in the Commerce. Both those had light on them. From the borough's purchase, of it, we own everything, including the wiring, that runs from light to light. And fortunately, equipment to repair this, so every light out is a service. Broken light is in order and waiting. So after the storm, we went around, within a couple of days, just kind of take note in inventory. That to get that, there's out here. Commerce is still waiting. So now, back up to this operation. And typically what happens with these, that pole down that has it's if it is tagged within lanes, it will not be installed. There's nothing about to set it all aside. If it's trash, they will take it and drive it back. Yeah, the last light we did was the one that council approved, right, on the upper side here.
Yeah.
That was in the neighborhood of 1,400. Well, it's, you can have a good one. That day.
And so it's actually repair, not replace. Or,
The one on the 300 block of railings.
okay.
So, Commerce will be whole installed, so, yes. That's
And Pico owns the pole. Great. Well, just looking at the pole that came down on Commerce, looked like it wasn't very deep.
Yeah, the one call that we got, that pole set about 2 feet deep.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's deeper than I thought it was. Okay. Thank you.
As long as we're talking about storm damage, I want to just give a general, I think we're all otherwise pretty much cleaned up from
We have the tree lying on the Elmwood pedestrian numerous. That was the first trees that came down, you know, position staff wise, you know, like I said, take that out and assess the damage. So we'll try to get over there and take a peek at it. But yeah, overall, you know, the storm cost a lot of money between outside vendors and borough staff, you know, for the neighborhoods, 35,000. If not more, now that's not cost of taking fuel and all of that. Cost. But hot water, there were fewer bars up here that, you know, got locked up. Water, you know, that would be sort of 27, you know, rush inside that. They said, yeah, so one thing.
And again, huge kudos to Stafford. I'm still not sure how we would essentially reopen their business on that. And okay. And you saw, I didn't know whether that somebody, when we were at town hall the other day, talked to us about a tree that came down over by the train station. And I think it's SEPTA's property. Sort of right by the train station sign.
Volunteers maintain that garden.
Yeah, but the tree came down onto the sidewalk. So I don't know what, and it's separated from the tree. It's just the branches.
Yep.
I don't know whether it's our responsibility, you know, or
I don't know.
that SEPTA's.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still there. Somebody brought it to our attention on Thursday night. Well, maybe we need to go over and see if it's still there. And
Yeah.
reach out to SEPTA.
I can take a look and
Yeah.
adjust our contacts if it's
Because
there.
it was over the sidewalk.
Okay.
So should try and get that.
Okay, we'll follow up on
Cool.
that.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on streetlight inventory and replacement? Okay.
Oh, Mike,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My neighbor's coming to get me because I'm going to see the surgeon. I'm sorry. Is there anything else that I can contribute? I'd like to be helpful if I can.
No, we're good. We're good. I know you were technically listed as a report, but I think we basically covered what we wanted.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your work,
Thank you,
everyone.
Carson. You're
Thank you.
always helpful.
Yeah, keep good thoughts toward my kneecap. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Thanks. Bye.
Fine.
Thanks. Okay. CIP.
All right, so I wanted to give you all an update where we are with the CIP, in part because we have continued to fine tune it following our discussion at council. And obviously the, a couple things have been amended based on the fact that we did move up our replacement of the 2022 Ford Explorer from next year to this year. Following that loss from the storm. And then Jeff and I have just been kind of fine tuning everything leading up to our adoption schedule, which is for August 20th business meeting. So I've included the master. So council, you have the master inventory, which lists everything, and I sorted it by prioritization ranking. The idea being that we typically prioritize the high and medium high for our capital project for the most upcoming years. And then in our 5-year CIP, just want to bring your attention to a few updates to this. So we have the So you'll note the replacement Ford Explorer now shows in 2026 with the actual numbers. So those were the numbers that we just looked at. So that does show up now in 2026 as opposed to 2027. I updated as well the Ram 4500 replacement. This is the dump truck. So this is the public works vehicle. If you recall, we had actually authorized the expenditure for the fit out, I believe in November of last year. And that's just because of the lead time for those costs. But we don't actually incur those costs until 2027. I realized that those costs did not show up in the CIP in the last iteration. And then the expenditure for this year is the cost that we incurred for the purchase of the chassis itself.
So the dump truck itself costs just under $150,000. Is that correct, Val?
Correct,
Thank
yes.
you.
So,
And yeah,
oh, sorry, never mind, wrong one. Go ahead.
okay. And then I highlighted a couple of things in red outline just to draw your attention to them. So originally we had the skid steer replacement in 2026. We've actually moved that to 2027 in consultation with Jeff. That's something that is not an immediate need for this year. So we push that off until next year. Again, just because some of our other expenditures have shifted around a little bit due to the impacts from the storm. Otherwise, everything else in 2027 is going to be the same other than the facilities. So this is kind of the other big change that we want to propose to you. Initially, the idea was that we were going to be doing the entryway vestibule this fall, and then we would be doing the gutter renovation next year. And originally this was phased in this way and was designed to be phased 2 or 3 years ago in looking at the costs and project load and things like that. As we continue to discuss this project with our engineers who will need to help us with the design of this, we've come to the decision that it's actually better if we do in fact combine them into one project because it's all impactful on each other, and we likely can get a better economy of scale and consolidate the work into one contract than to split it up into 2 separate contracts. Also because it's likely that we would have to go out to bid for each of these contracts. By consolidating them, we still have to go out to bid because we exceed that bid threshold, but it should be, just the one bid now instead of going out for 2 separate bids. So there is some cost savings there as well. So with that logic in mind, we have recommended that we actually push that back to a 2027 expenditure. What we can do though is still proceed with the design and the issuance of the bid in 2026 and award the bid for construction in early 2027. So we're not delaying the actual construction by too significant a time frame. We do still also need to talk to the library board to inform them of this change to the timeline, but that is the major change for 2027. And then the third thing that's been highlighted is this parking lot replacement. This is for here at 100 Conway Avenue. As we continue to look at our facilities plan and phasing and what needs to get updated when, the parking lots that we have here at Borough Hall, I do not believe has been paved since 96. So that was when we did the Public Works Garage. So following the construction of the Public Works Garage in 93, right, 93, we paved the parking lot in 96, and it hasn't been paved since. So that is 30 years. It does need a refresh. And we have budgeted for this in 2030. And again, the logic behind this is that by that time, we anticipate that the playground renovations will have been complete and installed. The skate park renovations will be complete and installed. As part of the skate park, we do have some plans to upgrade the underground utilities underneath the skate park. So we have sanitary and stormwater pipes under there that will be shored up as part of that construction for the skate park. This also ties in with our stormwater improvements that we're looking at completing on both Windsor Avenue and Haverford Avenue, kind of on the bracketing years for this. So this just kind of goes along with our overhaul of the whole kind of lower elevation area, stormwater improvements. So we do the stormwater improvements both under Windsor, Haverford, and the skate park. And then we can do our parking lot in that time frame as well. So at that point, we will have taken care of some of the most major kind of stormwater infrastructure deficits that we have in the borough. So we're really optimistic that this timeline for both the stormwater improvements on the adjacent roadways and the parking lot will all go towards enhancement of our municipal resources here. So that has been added in, and I wanted just to explain that timeline, logic, and pairing of activities to you. And I will be happy to take any other questions. Otherwise, everything else from a timing and a cost perspective has more or less stayed the same, other than those items that I pointed out.
Thank you very much. It's incredibly helpful. I'm looking at the same spreadsheet that was presented at the Borough Council meeting on the 16th and comparing it to what we're looking at now. And it looks like I'm just trying to figure out how the total costs have changed for 26 and 27. It looks like the costs for 26 went from 675,000 at the Borough Council meeting to 637,000. So kind of, $40,000 change. But the 27 costs went from 867,000 in 27 to 988. So 100,000 up. I'm just, is that I think I heard that we moved things from like 27 to 26, such as the replacement Ford Explorer. We moved some other things from 26 to 27. And I guess in my mind, it would be, this is roughly, it would add up to roughly about the same amount, but I got lost.
Sure.
Thanks.
So the dump truck replacement, as I stated earlier, I neglected to include the 2027 cost for the dump truck.
That's it. That's $75,000 difference.
Okay,
Thank you.
in the last iteration, because we had already authorized that cost, it didn't end up on the spreadsheet. I realized my error, so I did correct for that. So we moved the Explorer from 27 to 26. We moved the skid steer from 26 to 27. And then we took the library vestibule from 26 and merged that with 27 with the gutter replacement. And then the only new cost that wasn't on the previous iteration was that 73,364, which was a prior authorization of expenditure for the fit out related to the dump truck.
I lost track of that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
So the question now is if there's any other feedback or recommendations in terms of phasing the types of projects that are on the CIP and the phasing for them. We have talked through this before, the idea being that we're looking at doing the Elm Grove Park pedestrian bridge construction early next year. Pannoni's working with the EP to get our permitting in order. We have one of our 2 grants locked in. Hopefully we'll get the other grant and we'll find out about that in the fall. The skate park, we're working with Laura Marion. What I did also want to bring your attention to related to the skate park is that I did leave those dollar values in. And that's because those are the projected costs that were part of the master parks plan. Without any additional information at this time, I don't feel comfortable modifying those dollar values. And I'm using our long-range planning document as the basis for this decision making. What I did, though, to help explain some of what the actual anticipated realized costs to be is at the bottom, I added the total estimated costs for all the items. So this is if we paid for everything out of pocket up front, based on what the projected cost would be, that's going to be our number. The urgent items, we don't have non-urgent items. Those are the ones that are highlighted in that butter yellow. Those don't show up until 28 and 29. The total estimated cost with outside funding, all items, so that's the bottom line of this spreadsheet. That's going to be all of the items, regardless of whether or not they're listed as urgent or non-urgent. And this is assuming then actual realized costs for these items. So you'll note in 2027, the total estimated cost is $988,384. But assuming that the skate park is going to go down to zero because it's anticipated that the agreement with Lower Merion will result in their funding the construction, all or in part at least, if not all, that comes out. And then I assumed for all the other ones highlighted in green, which are the grants, I'm assuming a 50% grant cost. Most grants do have a match amount of anywhere from about 30 to 50%, depending on what the grant is and how much the total project cost is asking. So just assume that everything in green is cut in half, which is how we got to the numbers, other than the skate park, which is how we got to the numbers at the bottom. So you'll see in 2027, this is like, the retail price, but then the price that you actually pay. I feel like a price is right kind of a thing. So the total cost is obviously going to be higher than what we anticipate our realized costs to be. And by the time that we get to actually drafting and adopting the budget, where we put these dollar values into the budget, again, because it's just a planning document, we'll have a more solid understanding of how much money we actually need to budget for in the 2027 budget, based on our continued conversations with Lower Merion. So because we do not have that information at this time, I did want to leave those dollar values in, but to show you, if that does get covered by Lower Merion, our costs drop quite dramatically to something that's much more manageable for us from a year-to-date capital expenditure.
And just to play out the numbers in 27, there's between the 988 and the 638 is $350,000. The 350 is the 250 for the skate park, plus half of the Elmwood Bridge.
That's correct.
Cool, thanks. And it seems like it's a relatively long process, the conversations with Lower Merion, and how likely do we think it is that the skate park will start construction in 27?
Start construction in 27? I don't know. Optimistically, we do want that to happen based on the conversations that I've had with Lower Merion. We're proceeding with a memorandum of understanding to be adopted by both municipalities in September.
Okay.
So we're working on that as we speak. That will outline, it's not yet the formal intergovernmental agreement, but that will outline kind of how we plan to proceed forward with this. And like I said, that will inform then our budget, but we don't have that yet. So that's why I'm optimistic, right, that because we'll have the MOU by September, that will inform our budget, and that way we'll be able to proceed with good faith and understanding of costs and project timelines. The idea being that we sign the MOU, we come up with a steering committee, we put out an RFP for a design construction consultant. That goes through the public engagement process through early parts of 2027. And then we apply for grant funding to help supplement some of the other funding. And then depending on the results of the grant funding, we do have some preliminary construction that we need to do. As I mentioned, we have the underground construction costs. Because that's not specifically tied to the skate park itself, this is just costs that we have to consider as part of our infrastructure budget. We're going to be taking a look at that and coming up with some numbers. So we may end up doing construction next year, but not necessarily for the skate park, but it would be all of the underground prep for the skate park to then anticipate construction of the skate park in 2028.
Got it. And that work would not be funded by Lower Merion. That we would pay for that work.
That's correct, right? So, for example, the sewer work, and we're looking at what those numbers would actually look like. But any of the sewer stormwater infrastructure, could be paid for out of our sewer fund. So it's not necessarily showing up in our capital fund.
I see.
The other thing to keep in mind is, the phasing of the other park improvement projects, including the playground. We talked about wanting to kind of start in the middle and work our way out. With the playgrounds, we also want to engage in more of a community engagement process. So if we want to just replace the apparatus in kind, we can do that right now. We just don't have any grant dollars secured for that work. And also based on regulatory requirements, all of our play apparatus was installed prior to current requirements. We actually cannot fit as many apparatus in the area of the playground because there's updated requirements for fall protection zones. So Jeff and I were discussing this earlier today. If we were to stick to a sand medium for the base and replace the apparatus, we would have to, because of the fall protection rating of sand versus mulch or other materials, the playground would be limited to the, toddler to 5 age range. So we wouldn't be able to have apparatus that caters to older children. And also we wouldn't be able to fit as much in the zone. So I do feel it's important to maintain this phasing simply because, yes, there's grant funding timelines and staff timelines, but I also think it's really important that we engage with the community on what they want to see for the park, since this isn't necessarily an opportunity just to replace apparatus. This is an opportunity to really reimagine what that play space looks like for the community for the next 30 years. So I really think that it's going to be critically important for us to have a proper design consultant assist us, do community outreach, take a look at different designs, really get community input on this, because we're not limited to just the space that we have. This is our opportunity to reimagine that space and kind of take the opportunity to really do something innovative that is going to be beneficial for the community for a long time to come.
And is the general trend to move away from the sand and do like the mulch and the, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, sand at 9 inches has a fall rating of 4 feet. Wood chips at 9 inches has a fall rating of 10 feet. Just really changes the script on what equipment type can be in there.
Yeah.
So I have a question on the skate park funding thing, which is that in the scenario where we do not get funding from Lower Merion, I'm not sure on council we've had a discussion about whether we want to proceed with the skate park that is, that we pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make sure that we're preserving a decision point, or that this becomes clearer later in the year before we finalize the budget.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've had, just yet, we just haven't had that discussion even for purposes of engaging the public or letting them know. And as far as the line items go, if it was possible, like I like your explanation for it a couple minutes ago, it would be great if we could have that spelled out,
Mm-hmm.
like in the document itself, even just for the benefit of the public. I can see a lot of questions coming, just from people who spy his line and say,
The
look,
math doesn't
look what they're
work.
putting in. Yeah, just, why the number is here and presented as such. If it's a number we're anticipating we're not gonna spend. So, that'd be my suggestion.
Sure.
Just to spell out exactly what you told us.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking like color coding the skate park differently. Rather than, because, it says grant eligible, but,
Yeah,
just actually coding that in a different shade and changing the explanation. to be
Right.
Like, assumes Lower Merion or some, whatever.
yep, absolutely. I can make that more clear and put some explanation in the updated presentation that you'll have before you. And Jim, just to touch base briefly on your question about preserving the decision point. And that's true. Council hasn't actually made a decision, if the funding isn't available, do you still want to proceed with the skate park? If funding is not available, do you still want to proceed with the playground?
Okay.
So a lot of our assumptions have been based on the idea of these are grant eligible projects, but without the funding, are they still desirable?
Okay.
So that decision point is still ahead of us because that decision point comes in through the budget process. This is the planning document. We're planning on doing the skate park. We don't yet have the information that we need in order to say definitively yes or no on proceeding with that if the funding doesn't become available. I think just by virtue of capturing that dialogue and that decision making through the public process, we've identified it, and then we can still proceed with approving the capital plan with it included. But then we'll have that information ahead of us so that when it comes time to then actually approving the budget, then the budget will say, maybe we only budget for costs $638,000 that excludes the skate park. So we can define what we actually put in the 2026 budget, and we can pick what we want from this because this is to help us with the planning process. But this doesn't lock us into any funding requirements or mandates.
Thank you. One follow-up question. The underground work that needs to take place regardless of the skate park, where exactly is that?
Under the skate park.
It's under the skate park
Yes.
itself. Okay.
Yeah, so we have to jackhammer the whole thing up anyway to replace the skate park. And since we're going to be digging everything up, that is our opportunity to come in. So we have the sanitary and the sewer laterals there. I'm sorry, sanitary and storm sewer.
And it's not under the basketball courts. It's just,
It's both.
it's both. Oh, so we would need to
So what we're looking to
dig
do
up the
is
skate
what-
park and the tennis.
Which is what we just did on the 300 block railing where we did the Curry Place
Oh, okay.
quite minor.
Oh, okay.
Just to kind of, once we, if we do a skate park there and something becomes permanent, we don't want to have to jackhammer up to go in and restore a section of it.
And
So this is more preemptive in that because we're doing the work, because if we do proceed with the skate park work, once we put something on top of it, it makes it harder to go in. So since we're going to go in and do the work, we don't have to dig up the whole thing for this project, but you dig it up to get access to the pipe and then you shoot that liner through.
oh, okay. Okay. So we're not digging up the pipe and replacing the pipe. We're
Correct.
accessing the pipe. Okay.
Yes,
Got it. And that pipe is underneath the basketball court and the skate park. But it doesn't require taking up all the,
no, because we'll need access at the skate park to the pipe, but then there's a manhole in the street.
Yep.
So then you just go from the skate park and then you can shoot it through
okay.
to the street.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Did I capture that? Am I misrepresenting?
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
But that's the plan.
Okay, we're actually over already, so I'm just going to quickly run through the reports and public comment. I think we've really heard what we need to hear from Shade Tree and Carson Rex. There's no here. Joe, anything you want to report? You guys didn't meet public health and safety, right?
Not for the last 2 months, that's
Report there.
correct.
Jim, you want to chime in on finance and administration? Quick update on the bridge, utility construction continuing, right?
Yes, so the last Pico pole was installed, was it Friday, Monday? And so that should wrap up the utility work that's necessary for this phase of the project. I believe Comcast just has to make some utility disconnects, but that should do it for our utility work. And then moving forward, the contractor is working out then the construction of the catenary lines. And then we'll begin to proceed with the additional work. So they're looking at some alternatives to get access for the site, but the catenary work should be next. And so we'll keep providing updates as we get them.
Okay. Grant update, it's just we're waiting in the fall for the second half.
Yes, I don't anticipate we'll hear from DCNR until October at the earliest, more likely November.
If I could, Verizon, cell tower. is
I
there
was
any-
gonna ask.
Oh,
that.
you were. I'm sorry.
I wrote it down over
Okay.
here. I
Mike-
didn't know
Mike,
if
do you have
there was
anything
an
to add?
update on Verizon.
Yeah, so they just sent me the plans for the installation and I'll have that before you for the business meeting.
Oh, great. And where's it gonna be?
Next to the town clock, which, Jeff?
Up there now, putting in the drive rods and hooking it up, so we beat the rain, so.
So we'll be able to tell time by the clock, by
Well.
today, maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, all good, all
Yeah,
good.
so there'll be a new utility pole, a couple feet back from the town clock.
I think we should,
On,
maybe we don't want to get everybody's hopes up, but maybe we should put that out on social media. When do we think that the Verizon's gonna get installed?
for construction?
Yeah.
I'd have to take a look at the email for the timeline again, but we have to review it and give our okay. So that's
Okay.
gonna come before council for the business meeting, for August. And then we'll send our confirmation of approval back to Verizon following that, and then we'll just get on their schedule.
Cool,
Yeah,
excellent.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, as a Verizon customer who has to run out to put quarters in the meter because I can't get like, one thing I do want us to consider going forward, I talked about in F&A too, infrastructure, is thinking about, I think if Maggie sets up, so she might hit me over the head, but
Can
putting
you
in
move
some,
closer to Maggie?
yeah, putting in some 2-hour meters downtown because I have been getting a lot of folks, especially in Maluga, and the restaurants, like you can't add time on the meters and they don't necessarily have quarters. And, if we're trying to encourage people, I know it's a trade-off because you want people to move out, have parking for people who are shopping, but I feel like our people who are coming into our restaurants, they're not getting in and out in an hour. Anyway, something to think about down the line. Nobody in the room for public comment? Anybody online?
No.
Okay, I will take a motion.
Oh, before we do,
Yes.
the great explanation about the playground. How do we go about initiating the conversation about what the public would love in the playground? How does it get started?
Yeah, so a couple different ways we could do that. If council wanted to, we could just put together an RFP and seek a consultant. The capital costs that show up in the CIP are just for the actual construction costs. So any soft costs that we incur ahead of time, so any retainage of a consultant, outreach, the consultant would be a design construct.
Yeah.
Consultant is what we would be looking for.
Great.
So, in terms of the public engagement, depending on how well versed the selected consultant is on that, otherwise we could run it ourselves. But it really just boils down to, or we just do public engagement without the consultant. It really kind of depends on what council wants to see and the timelines for that. But that would just be a matter. So the typical way that this happens is that a municipality would put out an RFP for a consultant specifying that they want a design build consultant. that they want somebody who can do the education. They'll prepare the drawings, showing the different iterations. And then we put together a community survey. We blast that out to the community. We get feedback, what kind of apparatus do you like to see? Here's some pictures of other nearby parks. Which do you prefer? Have a couple of conceptual layouts, what do you prefer? And then we kind of take that and then pick the final design from that. The consultant then does the design work, and then we go for construction. So the idea from a timing perspective is that if we do this starting in 2028, then we can start applying for grants. So we could do this end of 2027, beginning of 2028, which tees us up.
Do this meaning the RFP?
The RFP, right.
Okay.
So if we do the RFP at the end of 2027 to start with the work, the community engagement component in Q1 of 2028, that tees us up then to apply for the grants, since the majority of grants are springtime deadlines. So we have, 3 months of community engagement. We pick our final design. We have a shovel-ready project that we apply for grants for. And then as soon as we get the grant funding authorization, then we can start with the construction.
Cool. So if I'm following, construction could start as early as, but probably not before 2029. Is that?
No, it'd be done in 2028.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the grants that we're considering for this would be ones that we would hopefully know about sooner. The other thing too is that we could start applying for grants next year that wouldn't have a construction date of 2027, but would be 2028. But those are harder to do only because the majority of grants really require shovel-ready projects. So you can't really seek grant funding for a conceptual plan that you don't have yet. And that's why the timing works out that way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Great.
Okay. Now can I ask for a motion to open?
I so move.
Second? In favor? 208. Good. Thank you all.
Thank you.